Hi, I'm Arthur, and this is part 4 in a 20-part series I am doing, giving more of an in-depth analysis of all the Primarchs in order of the legions. Do you need to have seen the other parts to understand this one? No, but it would make me happy. Jaghatai Khan is one of the most interesting and non-divisive Primarchs out there, as in general, I think it's actually pretty easy to like the character. Mostly because he's just the most down-to-earth out of all of his brothers. I usually say he's the most non-divisive because there are actually two camps of thought in regards to him, and that is simply you've either read about him or you have. If you've read about Jaghatai Khan, you probably like him because there is a lot to like about him. But if you haven't read about him, you probably think he's either boring, generic, or all that uninteresting. And I think it's kind of unfair for some people to not give him a chance. But before I get into my opinions on Jaghatai Khan, I just want to thank my channel members for supporting me. You guys are the reasons why I can actually do this and keep up making videos like the way that I have been. And with all of you around, I can actually get paid for doing it, not delay any of the content for your consumption. I'm working on like a lot of big background projects, thankfully, and I'm going to be putting out something interesting in the next couple weeks to a couple months. So with your help, I just want to say thank you. If you want to support me, as well as gain access to additional content or early content, then become a channel member today. It would definitely mean a lot to me, and it would also help the channel. So, I have a lot to say about Jaghatai Khan, but I also have nothing to say about him. I could go on a filibuster about who he is as a character, but in the same breath, I could sum up his character in about 5 to 10 words, and I think that is probably one of the best ways to see him. The freedom to express yourself and your opinions of this individual is probably the most important aspect of your interpretation of his character. So, like I tend to forget, a lot of you who look at these videos might not know a lot about the individual Primarchs, so where should we start to talk about when it comes to Jaghatai? Well, for one, he was sent to this planet known as Chogoris. Chogoris has probably one of the most strong ties to the local culture of the planet that a planet can have. It's actually one of the biggest defining factors of Jaghatai as a person. He absolutely took to the culture of Chogoris instantly, and actually holds it with pride in his heart, unlike most of his other brothers, whom either gave up their culture that they grew up with for the culture of Terra, or they simply integrated the culture of Terra until it slowly eroded away what they believed from their old planet. I think the culture of Chogoris is often misunderstood. Now, I will say that it's pretty obvious that it's based off of the Mongolian horse riding culture of like the Genghis Khan days and so on and so forth. But I feel like whenever I read about it, I should also note I'm not a history buff, but whenever I read about it, it reminds me a lot of like the mixed cultural influences that inspired the Dothraki from A Song of Ice and Fire. If you haven't read A Song of Ice and Fire, they have a very strong influence from the Mongolian horse archer and horse riding culture, but they also have like a lot of pulls from other areas, a very strong sense of warrior brotherhoodmanship, where they are seen as incredibly brutal, but also incredibly fair. If you challenge someone to a death match for honor, you are going to either die or kill them. They will not give you leeway, as that is the culture, but they won't just kill you without a reason. It's super intricate and very nuanced in the way that it's portrayed, albeit the examples of it are a little bit limited because Jaghatai and the White Scars aren't exactly as popular as I would like them to be, but I digress. As this culture is, as I mentioned, depicted as brutal and fair, it does have this one major overarching theme, which is that if it's viewed by an outsider, the culture itself is seen as savage. It's seen as uncivilized, which I think is one of the most interesting ways to look at Jaghatai, as he sees people looking at his culture as savages, as brutes, and he doesn't care. He simply thinks that that is their misconception, and if they don't want to change their minds, that is perfectly fine. He will simply prove them wrong through his actions, and that's another way to look at him. His actions are definitely more important to him than his words. That being said, he is still a very wise and individual as Primarchs go, and even as like fictitious characters go. So as the story goes, he was picked up by the Emperor, and he made this actual bargain with the Emperor. To work with him, he was going to state that if I'm going to be a part of your Imperium, you have to let me practice my culture as I see fit, with no restrictions. It doesn't matter if there's a ban on religion, the semi-religious practices of Chogoris need to be upheld, or I will not work with you. The reason he did that was because he understood that if he said no flat out, he was going to be taken by force. He could tell that the Emperor wasn't going to take no, so he might as well get the most out of it, right? So upon being taken by the Emperor to be a part of the Imperium, he was met by a legion that did not understand his ways. The legion he was greeted with did not even care to learn his ways at first. But eventually they fell in line with him, teaching them the ways of brotherhood and greater honor for the Legion, as well as just how to be friends with your fellow man, right? The Star Hunters is what they were called before, but due to Jagatai incorporating this practice of ritual scarification, they ended up becoming the White Scars. Now, I find the ritual scarification is very telling of Jagatai's culture and him as a character, as Jagatai sees the bonds of warriors and brotherhood to be more important than most others. So, the scarring that the White Scars have to go through is a way to show that at base, everybody is on the same level. Sure, there may be rank and status, but we all share the same scar, so it doesn't matter what planet you come from or what culture you come from. We are all brothers in this war, which I always think is kind of interesting. But regardless, thus, the White Scars were born, and this is where I find Jagatai's character is kind of fleshed out a bit differently from the rest of the other legions in the Primarch, because he grew up on Chogoris and was able to convert over some of his men into half-Astartes. They all considered each other the best of friends, not just warriors that served under the Khan. This comes into conflict later when one of Jagatai's older friends from Chogoris ended up dying to some massive orc war boss. This didn't just send Jagatai into a rage about losing one of his best warriors, it caused him to quite literally look at all of his men mid-fight with a bunch of orcs and just say, "Everyone, step back. I'm going to handle this." And thus, he suddenly had access to the fucking Speed Force and killed every one of the orcs with ease. Coming out of the cave to meet his men and then having a bit of a philosophical breakdown of the situation, where he's realizing slowly that he is going to outlive most of the people who cared about him and that he cared about from Chogoris. He doesn't like that, obviously, but he confides his feelings in one of his closest confidants, and they both come to the conclusion that, essentially, yeah, shit sucks, but you're gonna have to deal with it sooner or later, right? It's a really human discussion, and I think it's pretty interesting to see how he handles it. And there are various other conversations that happen like that between Jagatai and the other Primarchs. One of my favorite interactions was Jagatai basically feeling out if Sanguinius was on the level the first time that they met. So what is there to say about Jagatai other than the fact that he's kind of a chill guy? What can I even add to the conversation to change your perspective on the fella like I plan to do with the majority of the Primarchs? Because that's kind of the theme of this series. I like to think I go into the Primarch books and the Primarchs as a whole with a slightly different perspective, because I'm the type of guy who also enjoys the smell of my own farts and thinks I'm significantly smarter than everyone else. But here's the part I think I should fill you in on. I don't need to have some grand truth to tell you about Jagatai. I think he's a great character, and I think you should read books with him in it. But most people will tell you that. Hell, if I didn't say that in this video at least once, I'm pretty sure the Remembrancer would have probably mailed me an IED of some sort. Honestly, that is kind of in the spirit of Jagatai, where we can all have a collective opinion on him as a Primarch and agree at the same time, but also have different ways of looking at it. Jagatai's key defining feature is his ability to just be free, be whatever he wants to be. He is not constrained by the Imperium. In all honesty, probably almost dicked off in the middle of the Horus Heresy several times to just wait for the whole conflict to blow over, just so he could see the whole picture of what was actually happening. Thankfully, he didn't, and he's a true and noble son of the Emperor, but he's also just gonna do what he wants. And what he wants is to be Jagatai. When told that there was a chance he could die saving civilians, and that it wasn't worth it to lose a Primarch just to save some random people who happened to be on Terra during the siege of Terra, he immediately left to go save as many civilians as possible, and also boot Mortarion in his decrepit nutsack. He can't be tempted by chaos, as, to be honest, anything that would restrict his ability to do as he pleases is probably anathema to his entire existence. It's why he modified his ships to be able to travel significantly faster than other Primarch's flagships. Well, actually, it was because of several reasons, one of which was to fit the views of his culture from Chogoris, and two was he wanted to be able to, go faster, but, I digress. He is a super self-aware character, and I think that's why so many people have found him to be endearing. I kind of refer to him as the anti-surface level Primarch, where you can look at every Primarch and kind of know their shtick at base just by looking at them and their aesthetics. If you look at Jagatai, sure, you can see sword, Mongolian warrior king, but that only scratches the surface of the warrior philosophy king he is. The philosopher king that he is. You need to see how he thinks and puts things together. He is the ultimate anti-reactionary character, and I think it's why he deserves to be more respected, and so do the White Scars as a whole. I think the White Scars are one of the most undervalued chapters of Space Marines in the setting, and the same goes for almost all of their successors. I think it's an actual outright travesty that he is so marred and underrepresented by the fact that a lot of people just don't immediately understand the culture of Chogoris that shows up in the aesthetic of all of his Marines. They simply see bikes and swords and think, oh, that's their entire shtick, when it goes a lot deeper than that. I know it's mostly because, again, as I mentioned, you have to understand the warrior culture of Chogoris to understand him and them better, but I promise, if you take the time to learn about Jagatai Khan and how freedom is the most important aspect of his character, you'll grow to appreciate the Warhawk of Chogoris significantly more. But that's just my opinion. What do you all think about Jagatai? Think I should have gotten a bit more sappy with him and a little more personal, or should I have done something different with my coverage of him? Let me know in the comments, because I genuinely want to see what you guys think about, because you guys seem to be responding to my opinions of the Primarch series pretty decently well, so I do take what you say to heart. Also, remember to like and subscribe, as it shows me how much you are enjoying this kind of content. Thanks once again for watching, and god damn it, I have to talk about Lehman next time, don't I? Okay, this is gonna be fun.